right, here is part two of Michael's story. We left off with him getting a divorce and getting through with it and on with his life. So let's continue.
Yeah, so during that divorce, I was applying for nursing school and I had some close friends that were telling me just keep working on it. Get into nursing school. Don't stop working on your life through this.
There's a
And that
but before you get into the
yeah,
nursing, you had a problem with mental problems when you went through your divorce. I want you to touch on
oh
those.
yeah, I totally forgot. That was my first counselor was going through the divorce. I met a good friend of mine who suggested me this counselor in an hour south of where we were at in Fort Collins, and I would drive there every other week, if not every week, and go do counseling. And that was such a relief. Like I found so much, just so much relief again in that, and it helped me understand and help me just get through it. And then I went to the counselor up until maybe a week or two into nursing school, and it was nice because I was like, okay, I got through the hard part, and it helped me grow, it helped me understand. It
And
was so helpful.
what kind of mental issues were you dealing with through the divorce?
I'd say it was probably like mostly situational depression was like the biggest one for me. Like it was tough. I wasn't suicidal, and I've been suicidal in my past, but like during that it was just like, why is this so painful? It was just so painful.
Yeah.
I remember spending a lot of time journaling and trying to like feel my feelings through it, and talking to the right people that were my friends and that would listen, and just going to counseling, and that helped so much. Like I think it would have taken me a lot longer to get through that divorce, and like I don't think I could have functioned as well in nursing school if I didn't deal with those problems, because
Now,
I like got divorced in February, started nursing school in May.
oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was like
Did
bam
you
bam.
did you find any self-resistance when like you knew you needed help and like trying to search out a counselor and stuff like that, a therapist? Were you met with the self-doubt because we were raised that, men don't show
I think
emotion?
I think for me, the hard thing was, I think, financially more than anything, because I was like,
Mm,
oh, do I have the money? Because I was working as a CNA, but I made it work. And I think for me, that was the biggest resistance was money.
mm,
I don't know why, but for me, I've always kind of like been like, okay, I'll try it out and we'll see what goes on, with stuff like that. Um, I think that's just kind of been my, if I feel like I need it, I'm gonna try it, you know.
mm.
And I think with counseling, this I did counseling again later in life, and I was resistant to that during that time because I was like, I'm sure I'm okay,
Mm.
which I wasn't, and we could talk about that later.
Yeah, so let's get back in. You're just now starting nursing
Nursing,
school.
starting nursing school. I vowed to pretty much be a monk for the rest of my life because women suck, and and just going through school, I met this girl, and her and I became good friends. We had a lot of mutual friends from her school that she went to, her first degree, because our nursing school is a school for people with previous degrees. So it's like an abbreviated version. It's nursing school in 15 months. And we would travel all over the state of Wyoming and go to clinicals and stuff like that. A lot of clinical time. Learned a ton. And that girl that I met, later became my wife, and she's been my rock ever since. She's a pretty awesome lady. Um, I don't know what to say. Like, I mean, she helped me with nursing school. She helped me believe in myself, because growing up my whole life, I've always had a very big self doubt, as far as being smart enough, as far as being able to accomplish things. And she was always there to help me. And she was in my corner to be like, "Hey, you can do this." And we would spend hours in the coffee shop studying, and that's all we would do all day. And we'd take breaks and plan our future lives together, and it was fun. And she was adventurous and loved being outdoors too. So we would go out, go do the
That's a
fun things.
that's a huge part that you forgot to mention in your life was rock
Yeah.
climbing.
Yeah. Rock climbing was a big thing that I started when I was 19. And just, it kind of helped me get outside. First off, it was hunting with dad and the family. We had a cabin. And I think climbing was the vehicle to get me outside. And then like that's where I fell in love with the outdoors. And ever since then, that's been my, if I could get outside every day for the rest of my life, I'm happy.
Yeah. Especially when the weather's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Finished nursing school. My wife and I, well, we got married probably a couple months out of nursing school. Real quick.
You guys got married before or shortly after Caillou grandma passed away, yeah?
Yeah, she didn't get to meet Kite Grandma.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-mm. Um, yeah, got married pretty quickly. I think that there was like, because we were both Christians, we still have that, like, you probably know this, Hendrix, like the you only date for like so quick and then you get married as soon as possible, like that whole.
Sounds like Alabama.
Yeah, exactly. So I still kind of had that mentality a little bit.
I just
And
want
so
to
did she.
fuck.
Yeah, exactly. And it was great. We got married up in the mountains. It was beautiful. I love that. And we started our life in my hometown because we got jobs right away. I got my job in the ICU, and it was a very small ICU. And my wife got a job in the ER. So that's always been a beautiful thing for us our whole lives, is that we were able to share our jobs with each other because we were able to like relate a lot. So she's always been kind of like a battle buddy for me, for a military term.
Battle bro.
Yeah.
Okay, so that part does not sound like Alabama. We get married in a courthouse with your fanciest flannel, and then you don't know you don't know the other person's job because you don't want to work with them.
That's awesome. But yeah, it was a good start to our careers. It was a small hospital. We were 100 miles from anything, living in Wyoming, in Rock Springs, like small 25,000 person town. Salt Lake was the
Rock bottom.
rock bottom. I call it Rocket City, actually.
Rocket, no. That place isn't going to take you high. It's not going anywhere high.
Right to the ground.
Anyways.
Let me think. Oh, Salt Lake was like the closest big city to us, which is 2.5 hours away, which is really important for like to know about our context for us working, because we would always try and life flight people when they got too sick. So my job in the ICU usually was to stabilize and ship, like stabilize them well enough to be able to get on an airplane, get them out of here, because we can't take care of them long term because we don't have the equipment to do it. So we would see really weird things happen, like during the winter we'd get heart attacks, and then we'd have to have like an ambulance be led by the highway patrol on the interstate in the snow, pushing through the snow, trying to get to Salt Lake, and in the back you got like a respiratory therapist and like nurse, trying to keep them alive. So it was always like really weird trying to think that far ahead. Is like, okay, what can we do so we can get them out of here?
Now you actually working in a hospital now. What is your first experience of like just getting smacked by reality? Like, oh my God, this shit's real. Like you saw something that stuck with you, or you dealt with the patient, or
I think sometimes there would be days where it was just like nonstop moving, and like I'd step out of the hospital. I'd be like, wow, this won today, because it was just so hectic. Sometimes you feel like you just can't get your shit together. Like you just like kind of learn how to deal with the chaos. Also, yeah, there was a couple really bad deaths that really got me. Just young people dying, like really young. Yeah, there was one that really affected me, and I could think of that person today. Like I could see them in my head. I don't know if you ever remember that Scrubs episode where JD like thinks about all the people that he remembers dying. It's like that. Like they kind of just stick with you the rest of your life, and you think about them. And that one really put a lot of context for me, because like you see people on their worst days, like as far as family, like you see the family trying to deal with this horrible thing that's happening to their loved one. And as an ICU nurse, you're there to take care of the parents. I mean, like, take care of the family member that's sick, and then you take care of the family as well. Like you're doing both. So you're trying to help them understand all this.
Now,
And
when you're going through your training to become a nurse, do they prepare you anyway, like some kind of psychology courses or anything like that, or?
I don't, that now that you mention it, I don't really think they kind of like, oh yeah, it's gonna be tough. Like you're dealing with, depends on what field you go into. Like they talk about the reality of all the fields. I think that's the beauty of clinicals, is while you're in that field, you got to get a little bit more of a taste. So it's not really explained as much as seen.
Mm.
But I really feel like nursing should be explained a little bit more, that like, oh, you're going to be going into some tough stuff. Like self-care is really important for you. You should do that while you're dealing with people and that are dying or really sick, because at the end of the day, no one's going to take care of yourself but you.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So now pushing forward, is this around the time that you start training, fighting MMA style, or what's going on?
oh well, that's actually a little bit further back.
Oh,
actually.
okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was in. It was during the middle of my divorce, actually. Like a couple months before my divorce, I met this random guy at the gym that was like kicking the shit out of this bag, and I'm like, I want to learn that. So I just asked him to teach me a couple pointers, and he's like, well, how about I teach you how to do Muay Thai? And I'm like, okay, sure. And this guy has been doing it for 20 years. Came back from Thailand fresh just then, and he would train me 2 days on, 1 day off for 3 months, just training Muay Thai out of the goodness of his heart. And it helped me get through everything. It helped me get through that was the other thing besides the counseling. Like that helped me get through the divorce. And really good guy. I still talk to him today. He's a physical therapist. I really appreciate him. So that's when I started training. And then in Rock Springs, I trained at a jiu-jitsu gym, got way into, and I wanted to do one fight. And before I knew it, I was like, I got too old, and I'm like, I don't feel like I want to do this. I don't want to get injured. So I think if I was maybe like 5 or 6 years younger, I think I would have done it. But I think the older you get, the more you realize how not invincible you are. You're not 25 forever.
Hey, I still don't have that beat out of me. I still want to do fight one time in a cage and probably get knocked out, but I don't think that'll go away from me for a couple years.
Yeah, but it was fun, and that's what we always love talking about, that stuff. So
so then it's Rock Springs. You're in Rock Springs for how long, and then you bounce to your first duty station as a nurse?
Yeah. 2.5 years we were there, and man, it was just being back in the hometown. It was getting hard. Like it was rough on Katie and I's marriage. Like we were fighting all the time, and we're like, we need to move on, because we knew our time was limited there. So we were like, well, and we always wanted to be travel nurses. Katie's a wanderer like me. She's been overseas for stuff as well. She was like in the Philippines, and so we went to New Orleans for our first duty station. We were there for 5 months, and it was lovely. Like the job was so hard. It was really tough taking care of like a lot of bariatric patients, which are overweight patients, a lot of very sick people. But the people there that I worked with were amazing people. Really, the Southern hospitality is for real, man. It is for real, right, Hendrix? Like Southern hospitality.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you go along with it, yeah. If you try to resist it, you're screwed. If you go along with it, though, they're the most peaceful people in the world. They'll help you no matter what.
Yeah, that's how I felt down there. And the food was amazing. The food in New Orleans was crazy good. But there, I met a lot of people that their lives began and ended with Katrina. Katrina was always a reference point to almost everybody I talked to. And I was just doing interviews all the time at work to people asking about Katrina and stuff, and just hearing people's stories I didn't realize how bad it was down there.
Mm-hmm. That's an awesome thing is we don't remember. I remember Katrina just because our Uncle Kevin went and volunteered to be a firefighter down there to help clean up. And that's who we're going to have on next week. And we're going to be able to get to hear some of them experiences.
Yeah, that'll be good to hear those questions about that.
Yeah.
So that was tough. And I was so happy to get out. Well, like it was cool being there, but the job sucked. And when I left, I was just like, peace. I'm never coming back to this place ever again to work. I'll come and eat your food, but I'm never going to work here.
Man, I
And
miss some
Mardi Gras
Southern
was
food.
cool. Oh my gosh, man, it's amazing. Mardi Gras was cool too. We saw Mardi Gras. That was fun. Just had to throw that in there. Give a Mardi Gras plug. It's so cool. And then the next place we went to was Albuquerque. Albuquerque was the craziest hospital I ever worked at. I worked at the university hospital there, and there'd be days when they'd have to close our ICU because the person that we were taking care of was part of a gang, and they heard that he was still alive, so they're gonna come kill him. And like this was normal. Like stuff like this was normal there. And people were mean to each other there. Like I saw people that were so sick. Like I took care of a lot of trauma to the head patients, and man, people were horrible to each other. And
How did that
it
affect?
was
How did that experience in Albuquerque affect your perspective on the world? Because it was a different culture from what you're used to.
I think I was really depressed during that time, actually, looking back. I think that was the darkest time as far as like being a nurse. One of the darker times, probably the second most darkest time for me. And I don't know, I think it changed that we can only do so much as nurses. Like you bandage them up, you take care of them, but you're not going to change their actions. You know, they might go back out and do it after you help them, you know. And let me think. Oh, one of the craziest things about that was as I've left there, when I used to be on social media, I found out like a handful of nurses I worked with killed themselves. So that's how bad it was there, is like they were just offing themselves, man.
Can't deal with it, man.
So
It's way too much trauma, way too much
it's
sadness.
yeah, there was one unit I'd get floated to every once in a while in Albuquerque that was called the trauma surgical unit, and it was batty, like the craziest unit I ever worked on. At the end of the day, I would sit there and look at myself in the mirror and be like, hopefully I didn't kill my patient today, because it is so bad. Like I had one patient come out that was so sick. They had, I think I sat there and counted, they had like 15 different drips that I had to manage that were going into their body.
Shit. Jesus.
And I had another patient that was trying to get out of bed that was vented, had a breathing tube in his mouth. So that's always like in nursing school, they teach you like how bad things could go. So in the back of my head, I always have this like fear of like killing people.
Oh, of
It's
course.
quieted. It's quieted the longer I've been a nurse, but it's always there, and it's always like it's a really weird way to work. It's like hopefully I don't kill anyone today, you know.
Exactly.
Like,
But that's the reality of your job title too. I mean, you have to have that mindset, or you will fucking kill somebody.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to have a little bit of fear, but sometimes like I'd have to just call in, because the fear and anxiety of going into work would be too much, and I'd need to take a mental health day. So I just call in, and Katie and I, my wife and I, are really good at talking to the other one and being like, you need to call in today because you can't go to work. So I'm always so thankful for that, is she was always good at telling me to hey, just take a personal day. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, Albuquerque was neat because it was like, if Rock Springs became a city, it'd be Albuquerque.
That's funny.
Yeah, beautiful outdoors out there. But yeah, it was just hard. And we met a friend there that was a nurse as well. She's been a travel nurse forever. And we were telling her, we're going to go to California, be a nurse, because why not? We're going to do it once while we're travelers. And she's like, you're never going to come back, because out there they have laws that protect you as a nurse and unions, and you're never going to want to work as a nurse anywhere else. And we're like, you're a liar. So we went to Walnut Creek, which is technically the East Bay from San Francisco. And we worked there 3 months. It was all right. It was very suburbia. But we always spent our off days in San Francisco. And then after that contract was up, I took a small contract at the university hospital here, and was a traveler in the ICU until, well, here at UCSF, they usually have you come in as a traveler, and then you end up becoming staff. That's how a lot of people get a job here, is they kind of like fill you out. And that's when I knew I was like, I got to do that to get a job here. And then I started working in the ICU here. And the beginning, after my travel contract, I was dealing with a lot of issues for myself. Like my wife and I were having a really tough time with our marriage. I was tanking, man. Like I was very depressed. I was very suicidal.
Why?
Um,
Why were you suicidal at this point?
I think I think job and addiction was both of it for me. The job was getting to me too much, and uh, it was just hard. Like you just seeing it over and over again. And there'd be days I would just sit at home and just prepare myself for the day because I knew I was walking into a firefight. And so at that time, Katie was like, "You need to go to a counselor," and I was like, "I guess I'll check it out, whatever, And went in, got a lot of help from that guy, and it helped me so much. He recommended me to a 12-step program. Started that, and I've been doing that for over not almost 2 years this summer, and that changed my life. Working 12 steps and working on myself and
See,
cleaning up.
that's why I fucking hated you for so long, is because all the stuff that I was shitty at, you were good at. Like when they put me in fucking launch tool, I was forced to go to 12 step AA, and going into those groups and raising my hand and be like, "Hi, I'm Madison Hafner. I smoke weed." And talking to a bunch of fucking hardcore alcoholics that are just like, "What the fuck is he doing? He smokes weed," you know? I
Yeah,
couldn't get behind the 12 steps because of the whole, because at that time I had such a vendetta against God, and that is a huge part in the 12 steps. And I know they say it's your own God that you're supposed to think of, but I couldn't fathom it at the time what a God was because of the horrible shit I went through. But go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, yeah. No, well, the thing I liked about, well, and like I think with stuff like that, it's all about timing.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
I think a year earlier, I think I would have been like, nah, not
Yeah.
ready.
My
You
timing was horrible when I had to go to this 12-step program for Alcoholics Anonymous. I was like 20 years old, had my first DUI, and I actually got kicked out because I didn't know what I was doing with the psychology crap, like the profiling. And I was like, "Hi, I'm Austin. I'm an asshole. I drink and drive. Get out." Yeah. Timing is
know?
pretty much, it needs to be timed just perfect for you to accept it because I didn't accept it at all.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's half the battle is the timing, and willingness. But yeah, that
Well,
helped me out a ton. Well, go ahead.
no, I was just thinking, nobody could tell me at that time that weed was bad, because that was the time that Colorado was legalizing everything, and there was all these research papers being published through universities about the positive effects of PTSD and weed. And it's just
Yep.
like I was sitting in here and hearing, like, one of the guys in this group, this AA group, like he was so addicted to alcohol that he couldn't go to work without going through half a fifth of something. And like when you hear these stories of these people that are like on the extreme end of addiction, and then you're in there for something, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's a horrible
Mm-hmm.
thing. Anyways,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and it saved my life. It really did. Um,
I hate you
yeah,
for
because
that.
I it was I was heading down dark alley, and it wasn't going to be good. Like I think I came to terms with my addiction and to be like, hey, I hope this just doesn't ruin everything. Like I hope that this is something I could somehow manage myself and survive. And nursing was slowly killing me at the same time, and it was bleeding all over my marriage.
What was the steps that you put in place? Because I remember you going to a Muay Thai gym in SF in San Francisco.
Like we mean,
Like, how did you get out of your head? What was your my to get out of my head is running, spending time with the family,
oh,
and
oh,
smoking
like, oh,
pot.
like,
So
oh,
what's
like the
yours?
fun things. Yeah, yeah. Well, for me, it's like, of course, outside. We talked about that earlier. Out here, people love riding bikes, and I've got into that. That's super fun. Love doing that. Surfing is something I gotten into. because growing up in Wyoming, there's no beaches there. So it was like a dream of mine to always learn how to surf. And I'm just slowly getting beat up by the waves, and it's beautiful. Um, Now, since we've had a kid, the family time is so neat, like little times. Like I love waking up in the mornings, making coffee, making breakfast and hanging out with the fam. That's so fun. It's so simple. And then spending time with friends. The thing I love about San Francisco is Dad says it best. He says it takes all kinds. And San Francisco has like an array of people that I would have never grown up around in my whole life. And I've made a lot of really good friends here, and they have very different stories from me. And that's another thing that the 12 step taught me, is that my story might be not so unique as far as addiction, but also very different. Everyone has a different story of how they came to where they're at right now, and it's so neat to talk about that.
Yeah.
But I'll finish.
Go ahead.
Go, no, you finish your thought.
No, I was just thinking. I went into, when we came and visited you. I went into seeing San Francisco with the wrong mindset. I went in thinking, oh, it's gonna be a bunch of fucking techie nerds walking around, fucking, just being a bunch of douches. And I get there, and it's the best city I've ever been to, and the people there are just absolutely amazing. Just like you said, you're walking down the street, Haight Ashbury, you go up there, you're gonna see every kind of person in the world. It's beautiful. I love San Francisco. I will buy a house there one day. One day.
You have to have a lot of money.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that helped. The 12-step program was so helpful. Like, and Katie and I did some couples counseling together too. That was super helpful. Like, it helped with our communication more than anything, because it felt like we were trying to communicate, but we're always like missing each other. And after that, it kind of helped us like understand each other a lot more, and helped us like make some life decisions. Like, we were right at the beginning of the pandemic, we started trying to have a kid, and her doctor was like, maybe you shouldn't. And we only tried for a month, and she got pregnant. We're like, okay, I guess we're having a kid. We weren't planning on having a pandemic baby, but it happened.
That Hafner seed is strong,
man. And then we had a little girl in November, and that's changed my life, as it does everyone's. Yeah.
Go ahead. Talk on having a daughter and how that affected you, how that changed your perspective, because that's always cool to hear from somebody else.
I don't know. I just think the world is a little bit smaller right now. Like, it's all about the kiddo, and when she's happy, like seeing her smile, it just makes me so happy. I had never thought something so small would make me feel so good, and I attribute that to the work that I've done with like counseling and 12-step. Is like, I'm able to feel. I feel like I could feel a lot more, even though it's still really hard for me to understand a lot of feelings. But I feel like because of that work I've done, I've been able to be a lot more present for my daughter. And even though I'm not like the main caregiver, because because mom and stuff, and
booby.
yeah, exactly. So I just I do what I can, and it's so fun, like going on walks, swim lessons, just the little things. Like, when she loves being in the water, it just makes my heart explode. It's so great.
Wow.
And then learning with the pandemic too. That's a pain in the ass. Like,
let's wait and hit on the pandemic here on the next episode. Now, when you had your daughter, were you expecting that like beam of light from heaven come down as soon as you hold your daughter and everything falls into place?
Yeah, it was just more shock than anything. I was just kind of like, what? You're out of her stomach now? Like, it wasn't. Yeah, it took a while to really like feel like a connection with her.
What is this? I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, and I can't return it. Like, I have to take this home. I have to make sure she stays alive.
God said no refunds.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on that note, we'll take another break.